So we just got some really good news on potential head coach of the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson, and it's on multiple fronts. And as we continue to pursue and interview guys to be the next coach of our team, all indications are that this is essentially now a two-man race between Ben Johnson and Mike McCarthy. So essentially, the best young and new to it guy and the best veteran option by most measurables. Now, I want to cover a couple things. Have you ever heard the phrase Vegas knows? I'm sure you have. More on that. And also, ESPN's Adam Schefter is starting to really publicize that Ben Johnson is going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. So let's get to the part that talking about Vegas knows, right? They usually somehow get things right. And all of this worry about Vegas stealing Ben Johnson from us, it might just be a ton of wasted airtime. And I'm going to go to the story on Bears Wire. You can find it all over, but this required some digging. So to see where this head coaching position looks like, let's look at the betting lines. Yes, you can, in fact, bet on everything now, including this. And as recent as 4 days ago, on the screen, you'll see where it presently sits. But as recently as 4 days ago, BetOnline had the odds of Ben Johnson becoming the next Bears head coach at minus 125. And then they had with a guy like Pete Carroll and Cliff Kingsbury at plus 500, a pretty big gulf between them. But then we get a shift with Mike McCarthy entering the mix after Dallas couldn't get a contract done. So 3 days ago, just 1 day later, the odds shifted. Ben Johnson shifted in 1 day to minus 175. That's gaining ground on him big time on winning the job. McCarthy slid right in at plus 300. Kingsbury, he dropped all the way down to plus 700. And so now kind of lay of the land, where are the Chicago Bears at now? And this is what's on the screen. Well, Ben Johnson, he continues to pick up steam with the betting public. It now sits at minus 200 for him. In betting terms, that's an overwhelming favorite now. McCarthy stayed right at plus 300. Pete Carroll is now at plus 400. I mean, this isn't a sure thing, but as we try to see what's going on over and over and over, Vegas knows it's a real thing. Right now, it's a two-man race. And what's kind of interesting as well is where the odds lie with most notably the Raiders' job. Johnson sits at plus 150. And considerably, that's way less favorable than the probability for the Bears job. That's a 400-point differential. And then you have Deion Sanders, unbelievably, and Pete Carroll right there at plus 200. So essentially, to the betting public, no one is really favored for the Raiders job. And the heaviest favorite along betting lines is Mike McCarthy to the Saints. Makes a ton of sense. He has a lot of ties there. He is favored to go there at a whopping minus 250. A really heavy favorite there. So take what you will from this, but it's a different angle to see what may actually be happening. And all this Johnson to the Raiders worry, man, it might just be for nothing. And ESPN's Adam Schefter and NFL insider Jordan Schultz, they seem to be seeing the same thing. And Schultz is confirming the belief that this is now a two-man race for the Bears job. And I'm just going to directly quote him. It's been made clear to me that, for all intents and purposes, this Chicago job, and I haven't said this publicly, is a two-horse race between Mike McCarthy and Ben Johnson. If Brian Flores, if he goes in and wows them, then he's still in that mix. But right now, I think McCarthy and I think Ben Johnson are the two leading candidates for Chicago. It'll be really interesting to see what type of direction they want to go. I mean, now this is interesting, right? This has been the first clarity given by a reputable media source on the situation actually narrowing down. And if you look at it, it makes a lot of sense, right? McCarthy has a nice track record of developing quarterbacks, helming up successful offenses. And Johnson is a hot name right now, the best coordinator in the game, arguably, and ready to make that leap, right? So looking at the Bears, I think the Bears are still the team that would have to lose the Ben Johnson sweepstakes. People are saying the Raiders have already made a huge unofficial offer. But if you remember last year, everyone thought that Johnson was taking the Washington job, and he stayed in Detroit, most notably due to the constantly reported fact that he wanted to coach Caleb Williams in Chicago. So let's get to what Adam Schefter had to say about this. Hand it to him. The guy is seldom wrong, so this carries some weight in my book. According to ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter, Johnson to the Raiders is far from a sure thing. In fact, it might not even be a thing. And this is what Schefter had to say. If he takes the Raiders job, he's now going to be in a division where the head coaches are Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh. And the quarterbacks are now Patrick Mahomes, Bo Nix now, and Justin Herbert. And he said this on the latest episode of the Adam Schefter podcast. He continues with, if you're going to go to a team that doesn't even have a quarterback, doesn't have a draft pick to go land a quarterback, and has to find a way somehow to get a quarterback, so good luck with that. The Raiders have so much ground to make up right now, especially in that division. And that, to me, is what they have to overcome here. So to me, it sounds a lot like what Bears fans have been saying since Chicago's coaching search began. The Bears have a leg up in the Ben Johnson sweepstakes, this competition. And it's for several reasons, including Caleb Williams, the overall strength of this roster, and the fact that while the NFC North is in fact challenging, so is the AFC West and the entire AFC in general. If you want to go a little deeper, is he really going to get a break from being in a heavily contested division by going to the AFC West? And in a vacuum, which quarterbacks are more intimidating? Mahomes, Herbert, now Bo Nix, or Jordan Love, just laid a huge egg in the playoffs. Absolutely terrible performance. J.J. McCarthy now and Jared Goff. I mean, the fact that it's a tough conversation, it really negates the thought that the job will be decided on strength of the division. Plus, as Schefter said, how are the Raiders going to get a quarterback for the long run and fix this roster mess quickly? They're light years behind Chicago in their rebuild, by my account. And Chicago gives him a better situation for short and long-term success. So unless this turns into simply a cash grab, I doubt that, because he could have named a price last year. He ended up going back to Detroit. I think he's going to be the next Chicago Bears head coach. And once again, the Raiders can cheat all they want if that's their style. Just win, baby, right? With Tom Brady announcing the Lions playoff game on Saturday night, it's so bad. I'm not so sure it's going to make a huge difference, but still, the NFL is allowing it. And Brady's involvement in the Raiders coaching search prevents a huge conflict of interest. He's going to be with his play-by-play partner, Kevin Burkhardt, calling Saturday's divisional round playoff game between the Commanders and the Detroit Lions. And if the Lions advance to the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, Brady and Burkhardt are going to be broadcasting those matches all the way down the line. And the Raiders have interviewed Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn as part of their coaching search, a double conflict of interest. And Brady repeatedly took an active role in recruiting Johnson to interview for this position. And Yahoo Sports' Frank Schwab detailed Brady's providing analysis for a Lions game that Johnson's coaching. It raises some other questions too. And this is to quote him. How is Brady supposed to call a game without making any mention of Johnson in his offense? Would Brady be honest if he believes Johnson's game plan is flawed? That's part of being a color commentator. It's almost impossible for Brady to call a game without some of his comments looking like he's blurring the lines between Fox announcer and Raiders limited owner. Other teams competing to hire the Lions offensive coordinator, they would have valid concerns that Brady and thus the Raiders are gaining an advantage by providing analysis and possible praise over Johnson's scheme. So Fox is toeing the line. They don't view Brady's perceived conflict of interest as being an issue. Brady and his representation, they consider the stated intention to fulfill his contract to the end. It's a 10-year contract. So you're looking at Brady's commentary during Fox's broadcast on Saturday. It either eases or continues concern. In my book, it continues my concern. It's just going to be a subplot for the rest of this season. And as always, Brady does exactly what he wants when he wants to do it. Nothing's changed since his Patriots day days. And I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. But you guys let me know what you think. If that's still an issue, let me know if you're happy with this being a two-man race to be our next head coach. And I'll talk to you soon. Bear down, you guys, and enjoy the weekend's games.